Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Yes, the Linux session for the beginners curriculum. So, this is me, Ukeme David SMA. I'm one of the people from the AWS DevOps study group. Yes. So from the AWS DevOps study group, we have a session today by Latif Taiwo, who's going to be coordinating this, and we want to give you practical insights when it comes to the topic we're covering today, which is for Linux and the security hardening. Yes, security hardening. And we will talk about the Linux security principles, the best practices, out user and group security. We'll also talk about file system security and encryption. And then we'll also try to cover network security and firewall configuration. It is, yes, you are at the right place at the right time if you want to learn this. So we have someone today in the studio. We have Taiwo Latif. Taiwo Latif is someone I respect a lot when it comes to tech and when it comes to DevOps, Linux, and all of that. He's a huge contributor to the community. By community, I mean the AWS Nigeria DevOps Study Group and also the AWS, other AWS user groups. Is a very strong contributor. He has written numerous articles covering different topics. Is I just don't know what other kind of words to use, but trust me, I can vouch for this guy. Okay, so I'm gonna be. Oh, I actually wasn't sharing my video. Sorry about that. This is me. Yeah, so I'm gonna be bringing Latif Taiwo to the stage. Latif Taiwo, hiya, how are you?
Hello, I'm good.
So you're
How
eager
is it?
to. Yes, my day is good. My day is good. Hope you're pumped up. You're ready.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So
Let's.
I'm gonna give you the stage to do your thing and make sure you do magic right.
All right. I believe you can see my slide, right?
Let me share the slides. Just gonna put that there. Great. So
All right.
fantastic.
All right. So, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are watching us from. So, today we'll be talking about security and hardening. And we all know that security is very, very important in every aspect of tech, be it cloud, be it DevOps, be it networking. Security is very, very important. It's a paramount aspect of our day life, not only tech. So today we'll be talking about security and hardening. Before I delve fully into my slide, what is security? Security is simply putting barriers to files, information systems to rid off unwanted people from accessing such files or information systems to keep the file or information system, be it a computer, be it a server, to keep it secured and to prevent hackers, malicious hackers from having unwanted access to it. Now, what is hardening? Hardening is simply making a system or a server secured and difficult for hackers to have access to, hackers or unwanted users to have access to. So that is hardening in a nutshell. Now, we want to talk about Linux security principles and best practices. Let's ask ourselves this question: why do we need to talk about Unix or Linux security? Because it is also cloud security. Because we know that Linux is the cloud. I would like to use that word because 90 to 95% of the servers in cloud are Linux based. So it is very, very important for us to talk about Linux security because we have to secure the cloud. Our applications, our servers, our web applications, our mobile applications, our servers are in cloud. We need to secure it. So before moving to cloud security, we need to talk about Linux security. Ensuring Linux security is also ensuring cloud security because most of our applications are running on Linux-based servers in the cloud. So we know that Linux is used for several things, be it in web servers. Most of our web servers are Linux-based, databases, email servers, blockchain, containers, and what have you. So, and there are a lot of increasing applications that are moving into cloud, even Internet of Things. Now, so on my next slide, I have managing privileged identities and access across servers. So how do you manage privilege, identity, and access across servers? So from a cybersecurity perspective, because when we're talking about security, we're talking about cybersecurity, and cybersecurity is ensuring that everything in cyberspace. What I mean by cyberspace is cyberspace pertains to, or cyberspace is just a virtual space containing information systems, servers, applications, even the cloud also is in cyberspace. Anything that is connected to the internet is the cyberspace. So from a cybersecurity perspective, how do we manage identities and access across our Linux servers? So for us to do that, we need to talk about the 5 Ws. And what are these 5 Ws? The who, the what, the where, the when, and why. Now, who? We're talking about who is the identity of the Linux or Unix user, that is, who has access to that system. That is what the who of the 5 Ws implies. Now, the what is the target asset? Is it that this user is trying to access a web server in the cloud, or is trying to access an application, or is trying to just have access to, let's say, a file or a directory on our Linux system? And which connectivity method is this user trying to use? Is he accessing the server via SSH or via remote desktop connection or any other means of connection, or VNC? Where will you perform this change from? So are you doing the access from, let's say, remotely, or from be it on your local system, that's remotely, or you're trying to access that system, let's say, for AWS, for example, let's say you want to access the system, let's say via the console, and you want to access the server using, let's say, EC2 endpoint, or you're even using SSM agent. So the why does the Linux or Unix user need to access the system? Is it the right person to access that system? You need to put all these things into consideration for you to secure the Linux server properly. So when does this user need to have access to the system? For critical systems, those systems need to always be available, and definitely only an admin user should have access to that server, probably always, or when, or let's say once in a week, to, let's say, update that server depending on the business need. So when is this change acceptable to business here? For example, let's say we need to update our web server. There are some configurations we need to do, and in such instance, the administrator needs to have access to it. So where should this change occur? That is the end of our 5 Ws for managing privileged identities and access across servers. Now, we have the why, the when, the where, the who, and the what. Let's take note of that. So now, moving on, what are the ways to protect Linux systems from cybersecurity threats? First and most important the first and most important way to protect systems, be it Linux system, even Windows system, is applying the principle of least privilege. This means that you only grant user an access to only what that user needs, not that you are granting full access. For example, let's say a user just needs to read a file, just needs to read a file. You don't need to grant that user right access to it. You just need to grant the user only read access to that file. Let's say, for example, you're trying to build a website, or let's say you're trying to build a static website and you have your files upload to S3, you need to employ principle of least privilege. In that case, you don't need to grant, let's say, an IAM user, you don't need to grant that IAM user S3 full access to that bucket, the bucket in which you want to host your static website files. You need to apply the principle of least privileges by using creating an S3 bucket policy instead of giving the user a full access to the bucket. So that is a brief explanation on applying the principle of least privilege. Now, securing and monitoring network activities. So you can secure and monitor network activities on your Linux system, on your Linux server in several ways. For example, you can use this popular tool called Wireshark. We may use it here while I'm doing the hands-on. You can use this Wireshark to check what is happening on your network, to check the packets, how the packets are going from one server to another on the network. So Wireshark is very, very good for network monitoring. Another paramount and one other important way to protect your Linux servers from threats, that is ensuring that server you're trying to put what we call a proactive approach to security. You have to be proactive. You're preventing a breach from unwanted access. So always update and patch Linux systems and servers. It is very, very important. It is very, very important that you patch and update your Linux servers even before installing a new software. Now, the next one is that you minimize software footprint. What do we mean by minimizing software footprint? So footprint is simply like a kind of access or a kind of privilege that, let's say, in simple terms, footprint is the kind of privilege that a user or an application has on your system. The kind of what softwares do you have? So footprint is simply a cybersecurity term. It's used when we explain when we want to try to explain the processes of the steps of ethical hacking, but that is not the course of the topic for discussion today. Now, so you tending to minimize your software footprint means that you don't need to install unwanted software. And if there are software that you don't use on your system, simply uninstall them. Then the next one is you encrypt your data both in transit and at rest. And another important aspect is you use strong passwords. It is very, very important for you to use strong password, and there's a way to impose password policy on Linux systems. Then you also use multi-factor authentication, that is either two-factor authentication or even more than two-factor authentication. Then you can use SSH keys. I believe we all know what two-factor authentication is, and it can also be even three-factor authentication. So it is important to use SSH keys and also protect them. Our next slide, we have access control lists. So setting access control lists for your files and directories is one fundamental way of restricting access to files and directories on a Linux system. So on this note, we'll quickly do some hands-on. Now, do I need to spin up? So let me share my screen. I believe you can all see my screen. Kindly confirm you can see my screen. All right, so moving on. Now, I want to quickly do access control, create access control lists here. So let me just go to my desktop.
Sorry, Taiwo, do you mind increasing the font size of each of your tablets? Someone said it's very tiny.
All right, I will do that right away now.
Thank you.
Right. All right, I believe we're good. So now I'm in my desktop directory. You can actually check the permissions on your files and directories using the LL simply, but a better way to use it is using this access control list command get facl. So I can check the permissions on, let's say, okay, let me quickly go to directory, make directory AWS DevOps. So let's check the access control list we have on this directory. You can see that this file, the name is AWS DevOps. The owner is the current user logged in, Savitech. The group is Savitech. And I believe we've done user and group management. So understand we should know how users and groups, the concept of users and groups on Linux systems. When we create a new user on a Linux system, by default, a group with the same name is created for that user. So the user has read, write, and execute permission to this directory. The groups have read and execute permission, and others also have read and execute permission. Considering the principle of least privilege, you don't need to grant groups and others execute permissions to this directory, especially when they don't need it. So for example, now I would like to change this the permissions to this directory. At first, let's create a new user. Let me create a new user, but I think I have a user that can use it, but let me just create a new user. Sudo user add, let's just say Joy. So that user has been added. You can check if the user actually exists by either cutting this file and you grep for the name of that user, so you can see the user exists. All right, so I want to grant this user access to this file using access control list. We use the set facl command, and we do what we do sudo set facl -m or -- modify -u. I think this should be Joy colon. I want to give Joy read write access to this file. If I'm right, to this directory rather, the directory is AWS_DevOps. All right, so this should grant our user Joy read write permissions only to this directory. Okay, I have an error. This should be all right. Let me consult the man page. For some reasons, -m should be valid. think there's a mistake somewhere. Oh, sorry. So -m is actually right. I don't have to put a dash before you. So here we're saying set access control list. We're modifying for the user issue. U stands for user, the user joy. Read write. We're giving it read write access, and you can actually include execute here. We're only giving you read write access, and this works. So if we are to check the permissions for this again using the get FACL, you can see that the user joy can see we now have two users. The primary user, that's the first user, have read write access to it, while the second user has just read write access to this file. So access control is a good way to limit access to directories or files. So this permission will work for every file that is added to this directory. So we know that this directory is currently empty. This directory is currently empty. You can see it doesn't have anything. We can add file to it using Vim or Torch, or let's just use Torch, and let's just say demo.txt. So that is a simple demo on hands-on on the set FACL command. Now we can remove the set the access control list. For example, if you discover that a user is trying to compromise the system by maybe deleting an important file on the system or directory, you can actually remove the access control list. So let's quickly do some hands-on on that. I'll do set FACL -x. So the user is joy:joy, and we gave it AWS_DevOps. -s is an invalid character. Why? It shouldn't be -u. Okay. This is correct, but for some reasons this is not working. It's fine. Let's go into my demo.txt. All right, user has read write permission to it. So moving on, we can actually delete. Okay, we can set a default access control list for a directory by adding a -d flag to this command that I use here. Yeah, this command, if you add -d flag here, this would set a default access control list. So that is access control list in a nutshell. So probably you want to grant access control to some users, you use this set FACL command. Now, moving on, we want to talk about Linux user and group management security. You need to enforce strong password policies, because this is very essential security practice. Now we'll talk about probably 4 security practices for passwords. The first one is setting password expiry for a user, and I will still be using my.
Hello.
Hello.
So I've switched you back to your slides.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can, instead of sharing screen and using that to present your slides, you can go back to your slides.
All right.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about setting password expiry for a user. So we can use the passwd command, which is actually the command that you can also actually use to set a password for a user. If you pass the flag -e to it, you can use that to set a password expiry. You can actually set a date for the password to expire. So if, for example, I set a date in the past, the password should immediately expire. Let's do that. I believe I'm still sharing my screen. So our user Joy doesn't have a password yet. So I'm going to give her a password, sudo pass wd joy, and I'll just put it simple password. Let's just say QWERTY.
You're not sharing it.
I am.
What we see is the slide.
For real. So, well, let me stop sharing and share once more. But is it visible now?
Yes.
All right. So I want to set a password for the user Joy. So we do sudo pass wd joy, and I'll just give her a simple password. So now we want to set a password to expire, right? So we do sudo pass wd. So if we set the password to expire, the user should automatically be asked to change their password whenever they want to log in again. So that's actually a security practice, in the sense that if you observe that a user's password has been compromised, you can enforce, you can do this so that the user can actually change their password. And it's also a good password policy in the sense that it enforces password rotation policy, in the sense that if for example, you set the password to expire, let's say in a month's time, automatically that user has to reset their password whenever they want to log into the system. So we do sudo pass wd-e. Let me put a date that is in the past. So we can have, today is 25th of October. I'll put 2020, and I'll specify the name of the user. So this should, sorry, I have an error here. Let me go. Okay. Let's just first expire the password. So now, let's try to log in as Joy. You see, you need to change the password. So if you observe that a user's account has been compromised, you can actually expire the password by typing the command sudo, and you need sudo privileges to actually perform this, unless the current user has this super user permission. Let's say it's in the sudo as file, you're giving it access to do this without sudo, but in most cases you have to use sudo. So sudo pass wd-e joy, it will automatically expire the password, and the user has to change their password. You are required to change your password immediately. You can see this message here. So that is password expiration. So you can also use the chh command to set password expiration for a user, and this is the syntax to do that. On the live stream, I don't know if you can see this, but for me, I have to use this. So sudo chh, let me copy this. I think it's small for our audience to see. Let me come to this other. So this is the syntax sudo chh-m, you put the maximum days for that user to use the password. In this case, we're setting, let's say we have a password rotation policy. In security, password rotation policy is a very, very good password security policy. So let's say in our organization, we decide that each user should change their password every 30 days. So we can actually use this command to do that. So we can do sudo chh-m and we have 30 days joy. But let me see if I have another user on my system. There's a file, but let me just use this one. Sorry, this should be cut. So I actually have an EC2 user, and I should have some other users, but not too bad. We can always create another user, and we can always do this sudo user add to me. So we want to give Tommy a password and enforce password policy for it, like put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we'll use sudo -n, the age of that password, let's say 30, that's 30 days, sudo chh-m 30 Tommy. So no errors tells me that this worked. So after 30 days, user Tommy will be required to change their password before they log in. So this is another password security policy. So enforcing password security policy is a very, very important concept in Linux security, and it will prevent user accounts from being hacked or hijacked, because a password is constantly being changed every 30 days. So moving on, we want to talk about password complexity. So we can actually set password complexity on Linux systems by either setting a preferable length for our passwords. We can, in our organization, let's say we want to set, still talking about password policies, every user's password must be at least 12 characters or more. We can actually do that. And we can, so this can be done using pluggable authentication modules. And if it's not installed on the system by default, you can actually install it using this command sudo apt. I believe I have it. I believe this is already installed, so I'm not going to run this command. So to edit, to set password policy, you can edit this file in our etc directory. We know that the etc directory is a directory that contains configuration files for it on your Linux system. So you can do sudo vim, let me use vim /etc/pam.t. What's the name of the file? So okay, we cannot see all of this, but if I press the name of the file is, I think, common password. So I'll go into this file. For some reasons, I have to exit this other splitted screen so that we'll have a broader screen here. So this etc pam.t/common password file, the password related modules common to all services. So you can actually do some configuration here. Now I want to try to set a password policy here, but I shouldn't be doing this on my primary operating system. Just to, okay, let me quickly see if I have an EC2 instance spun up. I'll quickly spin up an EC2 instance. For some reasons, I don't want to do that on my primary operating system. So I want to use Ubuntu AMI. All right. So this will come up in a few minutes. So while this is coming up, let's move on. So there's password validity. You can actually set password validity period by editing the /etc/login.txt file. So let me quickly show us that on my system. So sudo vim /etc/login.txt. So if you scroll down, I think I can, let's not waste time. This is a configuration file. So if you scroll down, there's a place where you can actually make some changes. Aha, this is it. Password aging controls. So you can set password aging, what's it called? Password expiration in this file also. Pass max days is the maximum number of days a password may be used. So we can reduce it. You can see it has the default here is 99,999. You can actually decrease this depending on the use case on the system. Password min days is the minimum number of days allowed between password changes, and number of days, while password warning is the number of days warning. Okay, it's the number of days warning will be given before the password will expire. You understand? So if I change this to let's say 1 or 2, password should expire in a day or 2 days. So automatically users will be asked to need to reset that their password whenever they want to log in. So my instance is launched. Let me quickly SSH into it, and so reasons coming. Okay.
Hi, Latif.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we like try and wrap things up in 20 minutes? Is that possible?
Yeah, we can wrap up in 10-15 minutes. It's fine.
Okay, great.
Maximum of 20 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. So it should be. I think this should be, because I have one already. So I want to quickly use an instance, since we're talking about, since we are AWS Nigeria DevOps Study Group. So let's use a server running in AWS Cloud. So I will SSH into this file. Sorry, I have to quickly check this, but it should be here. All right. Oh. All right. All right. So I want to go into my sudo vim /etc/farm.d/common-password. Yeah. So in this file we have this. So if, for example, I actually want to deny a user from logging into the system, if, for example, we have a user already in the system, we can actually comment this line and leave this password requisite PAM set. Now, coming back to our slide. Okay, I kindly bring up my slide. So, coming back to our slide, we've talked about logging of devs. I've shown us that. And we've talked about password aging. So, we can actually lock password. So, let me just quickly talk about this command. So, this command here, the password requisite PAM _unix.so, this main len 8 will enforce password policy such that the minimum length of your password will be 8. The main class means that we need at least 3 kind of characters: lowercase, uppercase, and numbers. Then number of times that the password can be tried is for this retry. So that is that. Now moving on, I want to quickly talk about SSH. Because time is not on our side. Now, we can actually enforce group password policy here using the sudo gpassword command. Everyone here, if you want to know what sudo gpassword is and you want to play around with it, you can actually consult your man page. It's simple to do that. So, this is what the group gpassword command is. Now, talking about SSH, so that we'll quickly round up by, let's say, 850 or 855, because there may be questions. If I go to my SSH file should be which of the SSH files? I think config, it should be config.d. Sorry. No, this should be just config. Yeah. So you can actually add, now we all know SSH allows us to access our Linux servers remotely using the SSH protocol. You can actually deny and allow certain users to access your server via SSH by configuring this file. So let's check for the allow users. I think I'm not spelling this right. There's no pattern like that. Okay, if it's not there, you can actually add it to the end of the file. And let's say I want to allow it should be users. Does it have colon? Okay, so you specify the name of the user, let's say Joy, and I've added another user, Tommy. So this will allow them to have this. They will only be the one to have access to SSH access to our server. So moving on, we said gpassword is for enforcing group password. So let's quickly create a group here. Sudo group add engineers. All right. If I want to confirm that my engineers group actually exists, I think I can cut this file sudo etc slash group. Yeah, so we have our engineers group. So I can try to enforce, I can try to set a group password for a user, and for this group, I'll do sudo, and group password is a way of managing groups. Let's say, for example, I add several users to this engineers group. Let's say I add the user Tommy and the user Joy that I've created. I add them to this group. So the group password is a way of managing their own password. So we have sudo gpass wd-a, and the group name is engineers sorry okay sorry this user Joy, let's say user Joy does not exist. User Joy, okay, I created this on my system. So sudo user add all right, this adds this user to this group. I guess this distro of Linux, this G password is used to set the user's password for a particular group, and this is what we've done here. So we've set, now we've added the user Joy to this group. Now let's try to set a password for this group. If we have an error, so we'll have to troubleshoot that. But all right, let's move on. We can check the status of the password for a group. Let's see sudo gpass wd -Q, and the group name is engineers. All right, we have an error there. So now, on the final note, I want to quickly talk about the etc pass wd file and the shadowers file. They are very, very related, and actually, Linux security cannot be is a very, very exhaustive topic. It cannot be discussed just in 1 hour. But your etc pass wd file is a very, very important file that you can actually play around with, and you need to understand some things about it. So if I cut etc slash pass wde, sorry, I have to specify my slash directory. So we have several system users and we have normal users. So the X here tells you that this user, the password will always be encrypted. That is why if you're typing your password, you cannot say it. So, and we can check our etc shadowers file. Let's just see the content. Okay, I need to be root. I need to have super user privilege. So you can see this etc shadowers file and password passwd file, they are very, very related. That will not permit us to go deep into those files. So with this, we can round up to this session. If there's any question, it's already 8:55. Hello.
All right. Please let us know if you have any questions. Put them in the chat. I believe Taiwo has done justice. I myself learned a lot. There's so much here that I don't know about, and it's very inexhaustive. You can't cover all of this in less than 1 hour, So I believe Taiwo did a good job. If I were you, I'm going to go back, because it's very fast. I'll have to go back and, try to check what has been taught and, make some modifications if I can, and all of that. So if you have any questions, please let us know. All right, so it seems we don't have any questions. So what I'm going to do now is to check what we have for Saturday. Saturday during the advanced session. I'm just going to check my schedule. Just give me a minute to check. I'll put this out. Mhm. So for those who are just joining and don't know what we are the DevOps AWS Nigeria DevOps Study Group, and we are particular about giving people hands-on skills, hands-on knowledge on how to use DevOps and AWS services and tools. I'm still trying to check what we have for Saturday. Give me a minute. So we have the beginner session like we have today every Wednesdays by 8 p.m. And then we have the advanced sessions every Saturday, same time, 8 p.m., same place here on YouTube. And on Saturday, we'll be having Jenkins set up CI/CD for a Java-based website. So I will be taking that. Yes, so I will be taking that on Saturday. You don't want to miss it. And then for next week, Wednesday, we would be having. Yeah, so for next week, Wednesday, we would start our next season. We'll be talking about GitHub and Git, version control, God's time. I'm sure you guys know God's time. God's time will be taking that for next week, Wednesday. So, with that being said, no questions in the chat is is okay for me to call it a day, and we will say thank you so much for attending today's session, and let's see you same time, same place on Saturday. Bye bye.